Welcome back again. And this week on Tech Talk, Monday, October 31st, 2022, we're going to be speaking a little bit about how you would use Google Drawings, some of the different options in there, what it can and can't do, and just briefly sort of go through some of the options available to you as far as changing the size of the canvas and maybe adding some effects, using areas outside of the canvas with worksheets, and just some of these other options that you may not have been aware that Google Drawings can do. It's very simple, but it's still capable of a lot. It's kind of like a hammer and nails. You can do a lot with those very simple tools. So I'm going to jump over here to Drive and we'll jump in. I've already jumped into a folder here with some different examples I'll end up looking at, but just to get absolutely started at the very beginning, what I'll end up doing is coming to the New button and clicking there, coming down to More and finding Google Drawings. Now with Google Drawings, you can launch it this way and create a full canvas with all the tools, or you can actually use Google Drawings within documents as well. So I'll do this first. And we get a nice transparent canvas. That's what these checkerboard pattern always means. So there's no background. It's not white or gray or anything. It's just not there. I can always give it a title. Um, Demo drawing. Saves it. Perfect. And right away, I've got a batch of tools at the top here that I can work with. And as soon as I create something on screen, like a shape, I get all these other tools popping up. So now I can affect its background. I can affect the border color. I can change the thickness of that border color. Let's get nuts. I can change the dash solidness of it, basically the pattern of that particular line. I don't think solidness is actually a word. I can change the font style that's there, the size, the bold, color, highlight color. I can make it a link to something. Let's see, I can add comments even, kind of like on a spreadsheet or something. And not, well, spreadsheet, yeah, you can add comments on spreadsheets, comments on documents, all that kind of stuff. Just delete that guy right now. You can adjust all the formatting for that text within the space. So left and right, of course, centered, but also top, bottom, and middle. So I tend to use a lot of center and middle type options just to keep everything well centered. And we've got options for spacing. So all the typical sort of paragraph type tools that you're used to seeing, as well as options to clear that formatting or go to my formatting options when I want to start messing around with size or position. Now position, of course, I can just drag you around and it'll adjust those numbers. But if I'm trying to look at the values that are here and then pick another shape that might be on screen and get them to line up, that's one way I could do that. If I wanted to duplicate this though, and start messing around and get it to line up in the exact position of the other one, I mean, there's a few options to do that too. I can right click and I have the option to sort of copy and then paste. I believe there's a duplicate shortcut key in here as well. Let's see if I can actually find it really quickly here. One way to find stuff fast if you need to, and this looks like I need to. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. You can go to help and in the menu type duplicate. See, it is coming up with Control D. There it is. So it didn't show me where it was on the menu, just that it exists. Now, if I didn't want to use Control D, probably the most common option I use when I need to make extra copies of stuff, I hold the Control key and then I just click and drag like I'm going to move it. And as long as I'm holding that Control key, it duplicates for me. And I use that probably more than anything else. Now, I did say you could look at the position numbers here in order to line things up, but honestly, again, if I start moving this around and I get it in line, there it is, there's that red line right away. Now this guy, if I put him underneath, it's going to very quickly find me the center. There. Now I've got everything sort of lined up nicely. So, lots of good options for position and duplicating things, how the text is going to fit in here, whether it's auto-fitting or not. You've got lots of different options in there for messing with your text. You can add drop shadows. Let me drop shadow this one. That's not quite enough to show you what's going on though. I want to increase the distance a little bit. Maybe less transparency. Yep, looks like it's really thick. Let me change my border color so this is more obvious. There you go. Now you can see that drop shadow coming in. A little bit of transparency is nice. Maybe a little more distance. Blur radius. Change the angle a little bit. Let's see. There we go. Get that sort of 45-ish. It's 45. There we go. I can see those values popping up. So there's 45. And now I've got that little 45-degree drop shadow coming off of it. And you can do that with everything. I can add drop shadows. I can add reflection. And I can adjust just how much of that you can see, how much there is, how far away it is, all that kind of stuff. So lots of little simple, quick options just for formatting any old shape you might have on screen. What else can I do to this one just to fancy it up a little bit differently? Size and rotation. Certainly I can start angling things. Ooh, missed. So I mean I can grab this little dot at the top and start rotating it that way, and it will show me the number value right there so I know what angle I'm at. But if I want to come here and adjust it more, or I want to type in something specific, I can do that too. So certainly it's quick and easy to create shapes in here. I've got lots of different shapes to choose from. I've got a batch of sort of typical type shapes that even include sort of that, that canceled, no smoking type sign. You've got your smiley face, you got a heart and a lightning bolt. You got some very specific sided shapes, so 8 sides, 10 sides, 12 sides, and it tells you what the shape is called, which sounds obvious for things like a rounded rectangle or a circle. Oh, okay, in that case oval, because it's not specifically a circle. But over here, it's going to let you know what these are too. There's the heptagon, octagon, decagon, and dodecagon. Yeah, dodecagon. Got that right. There we go. And all these other shapes that we can sort of hover over and choose to use as well. This one's a little flowchart type drawing shape. Then I can get into various arrows so I can point at whatever I need to point at, whether that's for a label or a direction of flow or whatever it is I'm trying to describe basically. And just to blow that up for you guys so you can see things even better. There we go. There's all those shapes. There's all those arrows. There's a bunch of callout options. So if you want to make like banners and stars and explosions and things, I tend to use this rounded rectangle callout a lot when I'm doing, you know, different sort of graphics and such, and I want to point and label things. I'll use that guy and I'll put him on here, and I'll label him with, let me get rid of that, whatever I need to label it with. That is a to label. And let's bump that up so you can see it here. There you go, label. And I mentioned centering things before, so centered. Perfect. And then because I used the callout option, I'm going to grab that little yellow diamond there and move that around. And I can point it at, say, that guy. And you'll see an example of that in a minute. So just quickly going through the rest of what's available in here. There's some equation options as well, of course. If you're going to draw out different equations and you want to have that kind of symbolism on there, you can definitely do that as well. Basic text boxes are just a text box. So if I hit that, I can make my little box, I can type in it, but there's no border, there's no background, there's no anything going on there until I set those up. So if I know that's something I'm going to want to do, that's typically why I go with one of these rounded rectangles first. So I already have a background color and everything else just ready to go. Maybe little tweaks, but that's all I need to do. And if I find something like this that I've set up that I really like, and I've typed some text into it, which I can just start typing, I didn't need to specify anything, I just type away and it knows to pick that up. Then, once I blow this up for a second, and I decide that, you know what, I really like that size and that angle and whatever, this font, and I've got everything sort of arranged the way I like it to be, then again, when I hold control and I just click and drag that and move it around, I'm going to get to retain all those settings. So I do that with labels a lot, where I'll set something up and then drag it and use more and more and more labels, but I know all my labels look the same. I'm not having to find and fix the fonts and styles every single time. So either duplicate, which is Control D, copy and paste, or my most common one, like I said, is just click on something, hold Control, and then drag it, and you get a copy of it. Alrighty, so other buttons along the top here that I might want to mess with. Let's just back off our zoom here a bit. I still want you to see the tools though. That's a good number. Inserting images. So I can insert images like any of these other Google programs. I can bring in something from my computer. I can just start searching the web for any kind of graphics or silhouettes or diagrams or whatever I want. I can search my own drive, my own Google Photos. I can type in an address or copy and paste, more likely, an address for a image that I see online. And of course, I can use my camera if I have one as well. So I can take photos of objects I have, myself, whatever it might be. I can bring that stuff into Google Drawings here. Now, that's just sort of adding shapes and adding text. And you can change the position of these by moving them around. If I decide, hey, that guy needs to stay on top, I can right click on any object that's in here and change the order. So I can bring that to the front, bring that backwards, move it all around. Right now it's at the back, I guess. It was the very first thing I created. That's why I can't send it backwards. But if I say bring to front, well, now it's on top of everything. I can move it everywhere and I'll be able to see it because it's on the absolute top of the pile. And as you create things, it just piles up and up and up and up. So whatever you created last is on the top of the pile until you right click and start changing the order of things. But that is just basic like tools right there on the toolbar kind of options. Certainly your insert option gives you a few other things like diagrams and some charts and even pulling charts out of sheets if you've already got the data and you've created something over there. Lots of different line options. Those are up on the toolbar as well there. Scribble lets me do sort of a freehand option. Everything else is a very strict straight or controlled kind of curved lines, whether it's just kind of curve or connectors. Connectors, both of these are going to be for creating kind of flowchart type things. So yeah, if I've selected a curved connector and I click on one of these purple dots, it immediately makes a connector. I can grab the end of that and now connect it to another purple dot like that one. And the advantage there is that once I move these guys around, let's just connect him to that dot. Boom, there we go. They are now connected. They actually understand that connection and will keep it. So if you're doing flowcharts and things, let's get rid of some of this junk. It means I can put that there and that there, and then I can go ahead and add another connector line and say I want to connect from there to here. There we go. And that way I can move him around as well. Control, click and drag, get my new one, and again I'll just throw in another connector. There it is. So I can make sort of flowing flowcharts, connected flowcharts, whatever I need to do that way, and get it all working. So I'll barrel forward here with some of the examples. So again, you can see what your things that you're creating can do. Let's see what's a good one. Sure, labeling. Now open this one up, and what they've done here is that entire transparent checkerboard type canvas area that I mentioned. That is this section right here. They've given it a gray background, so it's not totally transparent. But beyond that, this is the worksheet. In fact, if I were to go hit print, that's all I'm going to get, whatever's on that main part of the document. Even if I'm saving this as a PDF to hand in as part of an assignment, maybe. If I cancel this, though, what we've actually got here is some instructions for the teacher in this case, but making your own copy. And then there's a student sample they've linked to here, it looks like, because I didn't create this example, of course. But the idea with these numbers is that I can look here and see like, oh, 1 is the radius. All right, I'm going to take 1. I'm going to drag that wherever the radius is. So I can drag that over to here and just drop it on there. And they've done a bunch of these. All they did was copy and then paste, 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 paste the 1s and then the 2s and then the 3s. So there's just a bunch of circles piled up like little tokens for you to drag and move wherever you want. If I want to look at the diameter, number 2, I can grab that guy. As long as I don't change the size of it. See, if I grab one of these, I'll end up stretching it, and that's not what I want. So Control Z, undo that guy. Need to get my mouse so I see all 4 arrow points, and then I can move that and say, oh, here's the diameter. That's circumference, dummy. There. Diameter. Sorry. Okay. And you continue dragging them all. So that's one way that you can kind of create these worksheet interactive kind of options out of just a drawing by doing your worksheet space in the middle and then collecting all the instructions and the other little labels and things you might want to use around the outside. Another good example of that, I think I have, no, it's a character map. I want a map. Where's the actual map? I'm going to switch to my other view here for a moment. Oh, I didn't copy it over. Okay, I had a map earlier with some labels that we could use, but then I found this cool chess example. I'd actually made something similar for somebody a little while ago and then found this one. So you would need obviously access to edit the file when you do share it, say with students or a friend or something, but all of these individual guys are just images on a grid. So the grid, hopefully, if I click on it, can I move that? Yeah, see, I could mess it up by just moving that around. So undo, undo, undo. Now there isn't, I don't believe, a way to lock that down. No, I can't. So the only way I could have maybe done this differently if I was creating this myself is to take the backboard here, the actual board that we're using, get that as its own image, and then in our Google drawing here, I would have right-clicked, let me just move him out of the way for a second, on the background, and said, you know what, I want to make a background. Can I say custom image? I thought I could insert images. Oh, look at that. I can't actually. I think I could use an image as my background, and it doesn't want to let me do that. Okay, fair enough. I lied. But you can see how this would, of course, work just fine. I can still drag all these pieces around and place them wherever I need to. And as long as the players involved know how pieces move, you're going to be fine. There's no logic to it, of course. There's no coding to say where things can and can't go. But certainly it will still work. And as you can see, I've got a similar example for playing chess. Other possible ways you could use these are other little samples in here. I'm going to put all of these on the drawings page of our doc as well as on the Tech Talk page, but you'll be able to make your own copies of all of these. And so for this one, it is a example of some character stuff. It's an English assignment essentially. So you've read a story or a book about a particular character, and you're just going to click in and replace the text with the character's name, replace your titles, whatever else you need to replace before you either, in your case, give it to the student or potentially the student hands it back to you in classroom. And they're going to be able to click into here, and where it says insert text, they can go ahead and write all about what that amazing character did. And over here, same idea, just click and start typing, click and start typing, click and start typing. These, of course, are all coming from ditchthattextbook.com. And I'll get that out of the way. And let's see, last example I'll throw up right now is these puzzles. So you could always provide this as a little exercise or a collection of these potentially, maybe at the end of class, or when you get done that difficult thing that you had to do, here's something fun to play with. And they'll be able to take these shapes and try and manipulate them and get them to fit on our cat here. So if I had to manipulate him, this is where I wish I could lock certain shapes down. It's not going to fit like that. I have to spin you around. Nope. I'll have to play around with this one actually. I haven't messed with it yet to see where it might belong. Oh, that's why whoever made this didn't put the cat at the bottom, so it was having trouble. There we go. Is that accurate? Yeah, that's good. So there, I figured out where the first piece goes, the biggest one, which kind of is the giveaway for where this one's going to go. But you get the idea of what you can have the students sit here and do now, and they can hand that into you later. Use my arrow keys to sort of make some smaller adjustments. Or of course we can get into those format options again too. If I really wanted to be specific with my positioning, I could take this guy and start upping him one at a time. That's doing it 10 at a time, 89, 99. If I want to be really precise, I could start making tiny, tiny adjustments to that. There we go. And I continue along until I've used up all those shapes, of course. And I place everything in here the way it belongs. And then I could submit that. So there's a handful of those examples here as well, and then some different versions of Venn diagrams and such. So a handful of different ways that you can manipulate your Google Drawings, whether you're just launching a basic circle here, and of course you can come in here and adjust any of these directions to what you need them to do in your setup. And I did say you could adjust the size of a Google Drawing right at the very beginning there. So let me just jump into a blank, well not a blank, oh yeah, blank. I'll go with my, yeah, I didn't keep that example, did I? So that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and say new drawing, because if I wanted to create something that's a very specific size, I can come to my file menu and I can come all the way down to page setup, and that's where I can decide, do I want my standard, in this case 4:3, so kind of that square monitor type dimension. Do I want to go 16 by 9 or 16 by 10, which is more of our widescreen type dimensions that we're used to using on our TVs and monitors these days, laptops and things. Or page setup, click, do I want to go custom? In which case I can decide between inches, centimeters, points, or pixels, depending on what I'm creating and how I need this to work, whether it's going to go on a website or I'm going to print it out later or I need to incorporate it with something else I'm doing. I can decide what dimensions I need to use here. I'll go with pixels for a second. And then our standard, oh, well, old school monitors were what, like 800 by 600? It's been so long since I used anything that size, but that's basically your 4:9 or 4:6 that we were talking about. And I can adjust that. I can make this as small as I need it to be. And as much as it got large on screen, it's still filling the page. When you look at my ruler, you realize I'm only just like 2 pixels, I guess. How big is this now that I just did that page setup? Inches. Oh, it kicked to inches. Okay, so my ruler up there was in inches right now. So just shy of 2 inches tall. If I right click, I can show the ruler or not. And that way, if I'm creating stuff, let me go back a couple steps there. So that's that 8 inches across. If I create a particular, say, button for my website, and I'm going to have resources available for people there, I can do that. I can make my button. I can make it look kind of cool by throwing in my drop shadow maybe. Bring that down, that over, fill out. There we go. Now I've got my button, and I'm going to grab the corner. I'm just going to bring that right up tight that way. And that way I've got my button kind of right in the center of that space. It'll even have a little buffer around it in this case because I made it so small. And I'd be able to then say, all right, I need this in another program. I need to use this with whatever other software I'm using online or otherwise. I can go ahead and say File, Download as either a JPEG or a PNG. Um, this part is really important in terms of, oops, I hit PNG, didn't I? There we go. So it's going to open up and let me save it. But the important piece there I want to come back to for a second is that PNG is transparent, has a transparent background, which means this buffer that I mentioned around it, it will be invisible. You won't really see that. If I go JPEG, that can't handle transparent backgrounds. So a JPEG is always going to be a white background. If I were to save that JPEG right now, I would definitely have this white border around what I had done, which means if I'm dropping it into a document or a slide or a website that already has a background color, it's going to look weird with that white border on it. So I use PNG more than anything else. JPEG sometimes, but PNG a lot, for sure. Close that for me. And I will leave it at there. I think we've reached our time limit. So there's a quick look at some of the things, there's lots, but some of the things that you can actually do with your Google Drawings when you want to create some of that stuff for students and have them be able to interact with what you've created. You can do the worksheets when you want to just demo stuff or create something that you need to put out later. Lots of different options. So explore, play around, see what you can find, and feel free to ask questions.